she said, the reason that I love it is it helps me know that my baby's getting milk. It helps me see that the milk is flowing. And I struggle with knowing that the milk is flowing. And that is what I wanted to talk about today because that shows me a huge lack of education.
Hey, Mama Bear. Welcome to the Breastfeeding with Confidence podcast. Do you dream of bonding with your baby through exclusive breastfeeding, but worry about breastfeeding pain or low milk supply? Maybe you're struggling with breastfeeding and no one seems to have any answers. I'm Jaimie, doula, international board certified lactation consultant, and mom of 5, and I have been where you are. After working through painful latches, milk supply worries, and postpartum depression, and supporting countless mothers through their breastfeeding journeys for over 8 years, I'm here to tell you breastfeeding doesn't have to be perfect to be positive. Each week, I'll share breastfeeding tips to help you prevent and overcome unexpected breastfeeding challenges so you can actually enjoy bonding with your baby. If you are ready to shut out the toxic whispers of the world, embrace your God-given intuition, and release your inner fierce mama bear, grab some coffee or your favorite herbal tea, and let's dive in.
Welcome back to the Breastfeeding with Confidence podcast. Today we are going to talk a little bit about a post that I saw on Instagram talking about the Munchkin Flow nipple shield. And I've done an episode on that before, but I want to talk more about the reasons why this creator was saying that they use it and why that it's a common concern, but this nipple shield is not the solution for it. So we are going to dive into that in a minute. But first, I wanted to tell you, if you haven't heard, I am now offering 20-minute breastfeeding clarity calls for moms like you to get instant access to expert breastfeeding support. All right. I know that breastfeeding is so overwhelming. You have a million questions and you don't even know where to turn, right? Whether you're pregnant and wanting to prepare, but you're like, I don't know how to prepare best. Or you're postpartum and you're struggling with breastfeeding and you're like, look, I've already seen 3 lactation consultants. I want to get help, but I don't know if this is going to work. A breastfeeding clarity call is where it's at because we spend a little bit of time digging into exactly what's going on with your baby and kind of figuring out the best path forward for you and answering some of those questions that, not every mom needs a full-on consult. She just has a couple questions she needs answered. And that's what we're going to do. So if you feel like you would benefit from a breastfeeding clarity call, I want you to go to the link in the show notes and schedule your call right now. All right, now let's get into today's episode. All right, so this creator, big account, the amount of interaction on this post was insane. And she said something along the lines of she doesn't recommend people using the Munchkin Flow nipple shield if they're not already using a nipple shield. But if you're using a nipple shield and you want to make sure the milk is flowing, it's great for that. Then she went into all the reasons that she doesn't love it because it's difficult to clean. A lot of the things that I said on the other podcast, why I don't recommend it. But she said, the reason that I love it is it helps me know that my baby's getting milk. It helps me see that the milk is flowing. And I struggle with knowing that the milk is flowing. And that is what I wanted to talk about today because that shows me a huge lack of education. I also wanted to note that in the video, the mom had a whole bunch of videos of the baby latched onto this nipple shield. And in all of these video clips, the baby was not being held in a position where the chin was leading the latch. The baby was very tucked up, very tight, and there was not a whole bunch of extension in the neck. There was not extension in the chin. So that right there is well, if you're using a nipple shield, the first thing we want to do is make sure that the baby is still getting a good, effective latch on that nipple shield. And if we're not supporting an effective latch with the right positions, then we're not doing what we need to be doing. So first of all, if you were using the nipple shield for pain or because the baby was having a hard time latching, making that adjustment to the positioning could be key. It could be game changing. For some people, it's not the whole solution. And that's why, getting that in-depth evaluation matters. But this kind of leads into, then she says I need to know that the milk is flowing. There are ways to know the milk is flowing without seeing it. First of all, you have to make sure your baby is in a position that they can actually feed in. That is so critical. And that is the missing part that most moms are missing. That's the part that most moms are missing. I said that weird. but you get me because your brain's probably a little frazzled like mine, and we can understand each other because we're both talking from frazzled brains, right? Yeah. Okay. So that's the first thing. Like, we have to fix how we are latching the baby. The second thing is that you should be able to know your baby is latching if they are doing a good suck, swallow, breathe pattern. A good suck, swallow, breathe pattern means your baby is actively feeding. It's going to be rhythmic. You're going to see them using their tongue. You're going to see them feeding. And you're probably going to feel a letdown. A letdown is that tingly sensation that you kind of feel in your breast when the milk ejects. Now, not every mom feels her letdown, and she has one. And that's okay. That is, a variation of normal. But usually, even if you don't feel the letdown, you can feel that, a little bit of pressure is being relieved, or you can tell the milk is flowing. You can listen and hear them swallowing. It'll kind of sound like a when they swallow. And I hope you could hear that through this microphone. That's another good indication that milk is flowing, right? If your baby is falling asleep immediately at the breast and they're not actively feeding, then milk is not flowing. If you are seeing that they're relaxing as the feed progresses and their hands are relaxing, then you can tell they're getting milk. We watch for things like their diapers. All the things that we talk about how to make sure that they are getting enough milk applies to feeding. So what if you don't see those signs, right? What if your baby is like panicking at the breast and it seems like they're not getting anything? I can tell you that nipple shield's not going to solve the problem. That nipple shield is doing nothing for you. Like, it's letting you see if milk is coming. Just because you see milk coming doesn't mean they're getting enough. And just because you think that the amount of milk you're seeing isn't enough doesn't mean it's not enough, if that makes sense. Like, you can't actually measure the amount of milk they're getting, but just by seeing that it's flowing. Maybe you can see that there's a lot of air in that line, and then you can see they're getting a lot of air when feeding. That's a different problem. But I don't believe that seeing the milk come through this nipple shield solves any of the problems you have. If you have like a lot of anxiety about whether or not your baby's getting enough milk, then I really recommend digging into that with a professional, learning the real signs and, figuring it out, not just getting this nipple shield to like have a quote peace of mind that could be misleading and then comes with a whole other host of reasons why it sucks. That's my 7-minute spiel on why I don't recommend that shield again, but also why if you are worried that your baby's not getting enough milk, you need to have like evidence of that. And then you need to have a plan for that. And if your baby is using a nipple shield because your baby needs a nipple shield and you have concerns about them getting enough milk, there's something a lot bigger and deeper going on. And just watching that milk is flowing is not solving your problem. In fact, it could delay care because you have a false sense of security. So please, please, please make sure you are working with a professional. If you are sitting here listening to this and you're like, this is helpful, but I still have questions, that breastfeeding clarity call would be great for you. It would be a great time to sit down and kind of dig into exactly what you're going through, talk it out with me as a sounding board, and then figure out what the next steps forward would be. It's not intended to be a magic wand fix all kind of appointment. It is intended to know what your next steps are and take the next steps with clarity and confidence because you deserve that. You deserve that. So go ahead and hit the link in the show notes. Join me there. If you have a question that you would like me to feature on the show, please feel free to DM me on Instagram or email me. And remember that if you believe your baby is not getting enough milk, you need to be working with somebody who can help you solve that problem, not just look for quick fix solutions or try and just make yourself feel better about it. You need to get to the root cause of the problem, and then you can implement solutions that work. I hope you found that helpful. I look forward to chatting with you next time. All right, Mama Bear, that is a wrap for today. If this episode helped you feel a little more confident or a little more prepared for breastfeeding, can I ask you a quick favor? Go ahead and leave me a review. It helps other moms find this podcast and join us in this amazing community of fierce and confident Mama Bears. And hey, if you know a friend who could use some encouragement or real talk about pregnancy, breastfeeding, and all things motherhood, share this episode with her. You've got this, Mama Bear. Trust your instincts, stay fierce, and I'll catch you in the next episode.